The Kwoth were a sapient reptilian species with blue skin and black stripes. They stood upright and were about 3 meters tall on average, and they had 3 fingers on each hand. They were strong in the Force, and they invented the Infinity Gates, Force-powered portals that were equal parts technology and magic. They came from Genorseal, a dwarf galaxy that orbited the main galaxy. Very little is known about the Kwoth's indigenous homeworld, Kwoth. At some point, they traveled to the main galaxy and settled on the world of Dathomir, a planet they took to so well that it became their second homeworld. This instantaneous travel between galaxies was only possible because of their Infinity Gates, which was the reason they invented them in the first place. The Kwoth were an advanced and benevolent race who believed that they had a responsibility to share their technology and their knowledge of the Force with other races in the universe. A blue man's burden, if you will. Their intentions were good, but as the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and the Kwoth would soon be tricked into unleashing horrors upon the galaxy. Their first great error happened when they were visited by the goddess Onre on their original homeworld of Kwoth. Onre claimed to be a celestial from another dimension who needed the Kwoth's help in getting her people, the humans, into Sky River. She flattered the Kwoth, praising their Infinity Gates as far superior to the Hypergates, a similar technology invented by the Gree. The Kwoth were pleased by her flattering words and believed her pleas for help were sincere, so they built more Infinity Gates and star temples to help her bring humanity into Sky River. Unfortunately for the Kwoth, Onre was not who she said she was. She was not a celestial from another dimension. In fact, she was not a celestial at all. Onre was an alias of Telotni, the Bedlam spirit who wanted to overthrow the Celestials and become the goddess of everything. She intended to use humanity as her agents of chaos to create unrest in Sky River, and the Kwoth opened the door for her to bring them in. However, it would eventually transpire that the humans were the least terrible thing to come through the Infinity Gates. Once Telotni was finished with humanity, both because they had fulfilled her purpose and because many of them had turned against her when they realized who she was, she unleashed the armies of Ilathurion from the Hypergates. The armies of Ilathurion were hordes of eldritch abominations and races designed specifically for violence and destruction. The Kwoth were horrified and devastated at what they had unleashed. The other firstborn races turned their backs on the Kwoth and viewed them as pariahs. In repentance, the Kwoth renamed themselves the Kwa and swore that one day they would find a way to atone for their sins. Over 1,000 years of darkness and destruction passed before the Kwoth got their chance. During the years of war that ensued in the galaxy, the Kwa took great pains to undo and mitigate the harm they had unintentionally caused. They destroyed many of their Infinity Gates and Star Temples, while other Infinity Gates they converted into weapons to fight back against the armies of Ilathurion. But a few Infinity Gates they kept intact for their own purposes. Finally, during a conflict called the Twilight Wars, over 1,000 years after their first great mistake, the Kwa finally got their chance to atone for their sins and redeem themselves in the eyes of the inhabitants of Sky River. Along with the Kabel, a race of sentient, spherical, planet-sized droids, the Kwa were tasked with going around the galaxy and teaching other races about the Force. They visited many different worlds, teaching the ways of light and balance to diverse races, including populations of humans, the Iktachi, and the Chironians. Tragically, on this mission, the Kwa ended up committing their second great error when they introduced the Force to the Rakata. The Rakata lived on an isolated, tropical planet called Lehon, which was located in a region with very few stars. They were a violent, cannibalistic race, and unbeknownst to the Kwa, they were not a natural one. Long ago, the Rakata had been among the armies of Ilathurion, engineered to be violent. However, as violent and savage as the Rakata were, they were not stupid, and they were able to trick the Kwa into teaching them all that they knew about the Force. Once the Rakata had learned everything they felt they needed to learn, they turned against the Kwa and began a reign of terror that would come to be known as the Rakatan Infinite Empire. The escape of the Rakata proved to be the final nail in the coffin for the Kwa. After helping a group of Celestials called the Ones construct the Tho-Yor, special vehicles that would eventually be used to ferry Force-sensitive individuals to the world of Tython in the core, the Kwa retreated to Dathomir, where they reduced themselves to the barely sapient Kwi. The Kwi would live on in isolated tribes, as Dathomir was taken over by the witches who came later, but they would never be restored to their former glory as the Kwoth. In the end, all that remained of the once shining Kwoth were their Kwi descendants and the relics of their civilization. The Kwa first appeared in the 24th issue of the Star Wars Republic comic, which was published in 2000. Their devolved descendants, the Kwi, had actually appeared first in the 1994 novel The Courtship of Princess Leia by Dave Wolverton. In that novel, the Kwi were called the Blue Desert People who lived on Dathomir. The Kwa's backstory as an ancient race was established in the 2012 comic book series Dawn of the Jedi, which also established their connection to the Rakata, who had first appeared in the video game Knights of the Old Republic, albeit indirectly. The existence of the Kwa and other ancient races in Star Wars lore eventually laid the groundwork for supernatural encounters itself. And now, here's my artwork of the Kwoth. For this one, I wanted to go with a slightly different vibe from the other drawings I've done. I wanted to go for a more movie poster or book cover vibe, including the specter of a Rakata looming in the background. I'm very proud of this one, and I hope everyone else likes it too. Until next time, this is Jonathan, signing off as usual. As always, peace out, and may the Force be with you.